An investigation by the Vatican into former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick says a series of bishops, cardinals and popes downplayed or ignored reports that he sexually abused adults and children. The report puts most of the blame on the now deceased Pope John Paul II, who was made a saint in 2011. John Paul appointed McCarrick as Archbishop of Washington, D.C. in 2000, despite commissioning an inquiry that confirmed he slept with seminarians. But the then Pope was not alone in turning away. Pope Benedict XVI, as well as other bishops and cardinals, are also implicated. McCarrick was defrocked by Pope Francis last year. At the same time as the release of the report, a former Vatican ambassador to France has gone on trial for charges of sexual molestation. 4 men have accused Archbishop Luigi Ventura of groping and inappropriate touching. Ventura has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing. And another damning report has been published in the UK today, again into the Catholic Church. It says the Church betrayed its moral purpose by neglecting the well-being of children to protect its reputation. Well, between 1970 and 2015, there were more than 900 complaints of 3,000 alleged instances of child sexual abuse, but only 133 members of the Church were ever convicted. The details of the sexual abuse involve rape and sadistic beatings. Many allegations were swept under the carpet, leading to many more children suffering the same fate. Well, for more on this, let's head to Tig Enright, who is in London for us. Hello there to you, Tig. So after all these allegations, there are also recommendations. What are they?
A long list of recommendations, as you would expect. Just to pick out a few of the fairly obvious ones, the inquiry team calling for better leadership to be demonstrated by the Church in England and Wales, including the appointment of just one person to be responsible for dealing with such allegations, the making of safeguarding training mandatory for Church staff and volunteers, and urging the Vatican to redraft canon law about child sexual abuse or sex crimes against children. But I think, Isabel, fundamentally what the inquiry team is calling for is a change in attitude, a change from the placing of the Church's reputation before that of protecting the interests of children, which is what the report's authors found, no longer turning a blind eye to allegations of abuse. They single out both the Church leadership in the Vatican and also the local Church leadership in England and Wales for abuse. In the case of the Vatican, they point out that the Church's actions were in direct contrast with Pope Francis's public statement from last year on child sex abuse, in which he called for concrete and effective actions that involve everyone in the Church. But the report team pointed out that the Holy See did not provide a statement to their inquiry, and nor did their ambassador at the time comply with their request to give evidence. There was also criticism for the head of the local church here, Cardinal Vincent Nichols, who's head of the Catholic Church in England and Wales, saying he didn't show compassion towards the victims in the cases that they examined. And Cardinal Nichols has accepted the findings. He's asked for forgiveness. He said, together as a body, we are really sorry. And he wanted to assure everyone that the Church is here to learn and improve.
Tig, what's also particularly chilling in this report that the inquiry notes that the scale of abuse is likely far higher than is actually reported there.
Yeah, one of the things they called out was that, as they put it, there's been no robust study for the prevalence of child abuse within the Church in England and Wales. Contrast that with the United States, where they cite an American study suggesting that 4% of priests have been accused of abuse, and a similar Australian study finding the number to be somewhere in the region of 7%. But no similar study of a similar scale and scope has taken place here. One that did seek to replicate or get a gauge for just how widespread abuse was, didn't, for example, include allegations made in state-run Catholic schools. So perhaps it is unsurprising that we don't really have a firm grip on the scale of this abuse, considering, of course, the lasting impact that such abuse has on victims and their willingness to actually come forward. Also, the scope that any inquiry team like this has to actually investigate fulsomely potentially decades of years' worth of allegations. And, of course, the efforts that we all know have been made to cover up such abuse in the past. Efforts which, in many cases, one can only assume were actually successful. Isabel?
OK, well, Ty, again, right in London, many thanks.